Hello, dear students, and good evening to everyone. Today, I am going to provide you the second part of the sixth chapter of civics that we have started, and the name of the chapter is The Police and the Judiciary. Okay, in the previous part, I have explained you about understanding the criminal justice. We have learned about a criminal case, okay, and we have learned that who some of the characters in that we have learned seen the public prosecutor, we have seen the police, as well as we have learned about the fair trial. All these names we have listened in that story. Okay, I have explained you about police and police administration. We have learned about that the head of the police at the state level is director general of police. We have also learned about that the head of the police at district level is superintendent of police, and we have also learned that a particular state is divided into number of zones. Those number of zones are composed of various ranges, okay, and many districts are composed of ranges. After that, we have learned about the division of district also. In that, we have learned about district, that after that subdivision, then circle, police station, and police chowkis also. Okay, in this part I'm going to explain you about further, or I'm going to explain you about the administration of district. As all of you are aware about district magistrate, students, district magistrate or DM is the head of the general administration of a district. Okay, he is responsible for administering the district, but at different levels, or we can say that according to his different functions or role that he played in a district, he is known by different name also. Okay, so as you can see, the first I'm going to explain you about the deputy commissioner, district magistrate, and district collector. Students, all these three names belongs to a same person only. Okay, all these three names belongs to a same person only. That district magistrate is only, or that person only do all the responsibility of different works, and according to that only he is known as different names. Now if I'll talk you about the responsibility of the general administration of the district lies with the deputy commissioner. Okay, so the general administration of the district is under the deputy commissioner, and he or she is the executive head and has threefold roles as. Okay, now that deputy commissioner is only the head of the general administration of the district, and he performs three functions. Okay, so let's see. Firstly, he acts as deputy commissioner, like because he had the general administration. Nextly, he is also a district collector, and thirdly, he is a district magistrate also. So student, all of you are aware about the person who qualifies the exam of IAS with a good rank, that is Indian Administrative Service Examination, with good rank, that person becomes the district magistrate of any district. Now students, that person has various functions. Okay, so let's see, we will learn about separately. So firstly, if we are going to talk about district collector, so students, we have learned about that Britishers used to collect revenue from us. Okay, Britishers used to collect revenue from us, and Warren Hastings, okay, during the British rule in 1772, Warren Hastings introduced a post in British administration known as district collector. As by name it is clear, collector, that means the person that is responsible for the collection. Okay, so district, why he is known as district collector? He is known as district collector because he was only the officer that was responsible for collecting revenue at that time. Okay, this post was started by Warren Hastings during 1772 only. So he or she is the head of revenue administration of the district. That means whatever revenue, whatever tax come to that particular district, the district collector is responsible for the collection of that revenue from a district. Okay, so district magistrate is also having the power to collect or to have check upon that collection of revenue in a district. So that while he is performing this function, he is known as district collector. Okay, so what is the work of district collector? In class 6th also we have learned this about district collector or district magistrate when we were learning about local government. Okay, local government, when we were learning about the government at city level or at district level, at that time we have learned about na Kanun Go, or we have learned about Patwari or Lekpal. Okay, so all comes under the this function of the district collector. So assessment and collection of land revenue is his first function. Distribution of agricultural loans, he used to distribute agricultural loans also. Okay, land acquisition, he is responsible for each and every land, that how much land someone is selling, how much land someone is purchasing. So all those records are maintained under the leadership of district collector only. To supervise the treasury officer of the district, treasury officer means whatever amount is being collected with the help of revenue, with the help of tax, okay, treasury officer is responsible for that. Treasury means the treasure where that how much amount is collected from that particular district, okay, that is the responsibility of the treasury officer. And that treasury officer also works under the district collector. Now preparation and maintenance of land records also, okay, the district collector, under district collector, Lekhpal, Kanungo and Patwari is used to maintain land record, okay, used to maintain land record, and they are answerable to the district collector. Here's appeals in revenue cases against the orders of lower courts. Now if the lower court of any district orders for, or we can say that the lower courts like revenue courts of a district, if there is some problem, if the person is not paying revenue, if some case file against that person, so in that case, that if they are not happy with the judgment of the lower court, they can go to the district collector or for whatever problems they are facing while revenue collection. Okay, so this is all about the district collector. Now if we will talk about the next one is as deputy commissioner. Now we will learn what is the function of that person as deputy commissioner. So as deputy commissioner, he or she is the executive head of the district and performs various functions. Now he is the executive heads. Now if we will talk about executive heads at broad level, so prime minister is the executive head, chief minister is the executive head, okay, like that only a district also has an executive head, and that head is only known as deputy commissioner with multifarious responsibilities. Now that deputy commissioner has various responsibilities relating to development, that means whatever development occur in the district, for that also he is responsible, for controlling the panchayats, for controlling the local bodies, for controlling the civil administration, etc. Now let's talk about the district magistrate. In abbreviation of district magistrate is DM. DM is an IS officer or IS officer. Okay, he is responsible for maintaining law and order in the district. So DM is responsible for maintaining law and order. Have you seen that the district collector is responsible for collecting the revenue, the deputy commissioner is responsible for multifarious activities like for development, for controlling the local governments, like for controlling the panchayats and all that, and district magistrate is basically responsible for maintaining law and order in the district. Okay, law and order, that means he will work with the in the coordination with the police, jail and judiciary. Okay, so he has three major functions, that is police, judiciary and jails. Okay students, if we will talk about the district level, okay, so we are knowing that the head of the police at district level is superintendent of police, okay, but after that also the ultimate head of the district is district magistrate. Okay, so that district magistrate is responsible for maintaining law and order in the district with the help of superintendent of police. Okay, are you able to understood this, that yes, ultimate responsibility, because the ultimate head of the district is district magistrate only. Okay, so he will maintain law and order in the district with the help of superintendent of police. Okay, he is also responsible for maintaining judiciary also, because many a times we can also say that district magistrate had some important judicial powers also. Okay, and he also oversees the functioning of police force. Why it is known as he is having some judicial power also, because some of the cases goes to him also. Okay, police forces in the district are kept under control and supervision of DM with the help of superintendent of police. So if I'll talk about the overall function of the deputy commissioner or the magistrate or the revenue collector or the district collector, so it is maintaining law and order, providing civic amenities. If I'll talk about civic amenities, that means to give all the necessary things to the people, those who are living in that district. Okay, and supervising development, road construction, street lights, okay, hospital management, all these are under the control of these deputy commissioner or district collector or DM. Collection of revenue is also their responsibility, providing relief work during emergency situations. Now sometimes if any famine occur in that particular district, then it is the responsibility of the district magistrate or the deputy commissioner or the district collector to provide relief work to the persons of that district. Overseeing Panchayati Raj activities, as I have said that they are also responsible for maintaining the local government also. Okay, so they supervise the panchayatis also, Panchayati Raj, that means gram panchayats or the block governments are also under the control of the district magistrate. So I hope it is clear to you the general administration of the district. Okay, so in that one person only works, but according to his function his name is different. Okay, according to his role he is known by different names. Now next we are going to learn about the next topic that we are going to learn about, that is police station. In the previous part only I have explained you about the police station. Now students, if I will talk you about the police station, so it is the basic and the most important unit of police administration. Okay, because it is very important that the police should get smaller areas for the supervision. Okay, there is that means suppose that Gorakhpur is there, and if we will put only one police system in Gorakhpur that works from the center of Gorakhpur, then anything or any crime occur, then we have to go to that much distance, okay, for filing FIR or for anything. So it is responsible that in every circle there should be one police station, so that nearby some locality there should be police station. Okay, why police station is important? Because we go to a police station whenever there is a disruption of law and order, whenever some crime happens, whenever something stolen by someone, so usually or we go to the police station for filing the FIR. Now the police is responsible for preventing criminal incidents and protection of life and property of the citizens. This we have functions of police we have learned in the previous part. Okay, so as we are knowing that in cities, if we will talk about the circle, okay, so in circle who is the head of the circle in cities? The inspector of police. If we will talk about the police station, as I have explained you about SHO, that is the station house officer is responsible. And if we will talk about the police chowkis, so in police chowkis there are sub inspectors, constables and head constables, okay, for different functions. Police used to patrol also. Now what is the meaning of patrol? Have you seen the bikes of police? Okay, so with that only they used to move from one place to another, the gasht lagana. Okay, they used to move and they keep on their eye on the that everything is going on smoothly or not. So this is all about the police station. Now the most important topic that I am going to explain you is cognizable and non-cognizable offense. After this we are going to learn about FIR, that is first information report, students. But before learning about first information report, I want to explain you about two things, cognizable and non-cognizable offense. Okay, Sange and Asange Aprad. Okay, so in that we are going to learn what is the meaning of offense. So basically offense means a crime or any illegal action. So there are two types of crimes. Okay, cognizable crime or cognizable offense, and the one is non-cognizable offense. About this we are going to learn. Okay, so now if we will talk about the cognizable offense, that is Sange Aprad. Okay, so according to the CRPC section 2C, okay, like we are having articles now, like that only we are having criminal procedure code. Okay, it is criminal procedure code, that according to in which sections are given, okay, that which type of cases in that particular code it is mentioned, that which type of cases are considered as criminal cases, what type of section should be put on various criminal cases. Okay, so that is a code of conduct that is given, that is known as criminal procedure code. Okay, so about cognizable offense, it is written in the criminal procedure code, okay, criminal procedure code section 2C, that cognizable offense or case means a case in which a police officer may arrest without warrant. Okay, have you seen in the movies that how a police officer come to arrest and say that we are having arrest warrant to arrest you? Okay, so there are some cases in India on which police can start investigating without an FIR. Okay, so basically that are known as cognizable cases. That means the cases for which a police officer may arrest without a warrant. Okay, that is only known as cognizable offense. Okay, let's understand it more. A cognizable offense is one on which a police may arrest a person without warrant. Now you will ask, ma'am, what is warrant? So students, there is a procedure of requesting in the court about the charges before taking the warrant. Warrant is basically the order of the court. Okay, what is warrant? Order is order of the court. Okay, the court orders, okay, that yes, police has to arrest this person, that is the warrant. But in cognizable offense, a police can arrest any person or a person that has committed any crime without warrant. Okay, the police is authorized to start investigation on their own after an FIR has been launched. Now, students, if I talk you about the cognizable cases, so cognizable cases are the cases in which police can start investigating as someone files the FIR. Okay, so firstly, on which cases we can file FIR? For cognizable cases. What are cognizable cases? So cognizable offense or cases are the cases on which police may arrest a person without warrant, without any court order. Now, in these type of cases, police is free to start investigating of their own without any court order. Once the person, okay, that files the FIR, the police will start the investigation. They do not require any order from court to do so. So these type of cases, they do not require any type of court order for starting the investigation. Let's see which type of cases are cognizable cases. Now, if we will talk about the cognizable cases, so murder, fighting, rape, if someone has stolen something, kidnapping, okay, theft, robbery, all these types of cases comes under cognizable offense. Okay, these are cognizable cases in which if you have committed any of the crime belonging to it. Okay, if you have murdered someone, okay, then you police is having the right to arrest you without any warrant. So I think you are able to understand what are cognizable cases. Okay, here are some of the examples of the cognizable cases: murder, fighting, rape, steal, kidnapping, theft, robbery. Okay, all these belongs to the cognizable cases. In these cases, police is free to start the investigation once the FIR is being filed in the police station. So I hope it is clear to you. So it is clear that non-cognizable offense are that in which police may not arrest you without any warrant. Let's see. Now let's talk about the non-cognizable offense. Now what are non-cognizable offense, that we will see. So it is given according to CRPC, that is Criminal Procedure Code section 2L. It is given in that non-cognizable offense means an offense for which, okay, for which a police officer has no authority to arrest without warrant. That means for starting the investigation of this case, police needs the order of the court. Then only the police will start the investigation. Let's learn about more. A non-cognizable offense is one in which the police cannot register an FIR. For non-cognizable cases, the police cannot register an FIR because these cases are not very serious ones. Okay, I will explain you the examples of these cases. They do not have any authority to begin any investigation. Okay, they do not start any investigation. The police cannot investigate or arrest without a warrant, that is court order. Okay, so these the offenses or the cases for which police is having no right to start the investigation or to arrest a person without any court order. So that is known as non-cognizable offense. Against non-cognizable offense, okay, no FIR can be registered. Let's see what are non-cognizable offense. Pickpocketing, molestation, extortion, that means to किसी को परेशान करना, dacoity and snatching. Okay, these are the cases for which people should not file FIR. Okay, public nuisance, that means to mischief. Public nuisance means socially, to irritate people socially, or okay, public mischief and so on. So they are comparatively less serious in nature. That is why these offenses are known as non-cognizable offense, and direct cases are not started in this type of cases. Okay, police has to the people has to ask the firstly they have to ask in the court, then only the investigation will start. So I hope cognizable and non-cognizable is clear to you. Now we are going to learn about FIR. The full form of FIR is First Information Report. Okay, so let's learn firstly what is FIR. Now student, if I will ask you about that what is FIR, because you have already learned about it in class 6. So what you do whenever a crime is committed, the aggrieved person, that means the person who is related to that crime should go to the police station of the area where the crime has taken place and lodge a written complaint. That means, suppose that something happens to us, okay, in our family or in our surroundings, in our neighborhood, and we have seen the crime happening. We have seen that the crime occurred there. We are the eyewitness of that crime. Okay, so we are the person who has seen that crime happening in front of our eyes, or if we have listened something related to it. Okay, so that person can go to the police station of the area, nearby area, wherever the crime has taken place, and lodge a written complaint. Okay, so that written complaint is only known as FIR, that is first information report. Let's learn what is FIR. So the first information report, that is FIR, is a written document. What it is? Written document prepared by the police. Now who prepared the FIR? The police prepared the FIR. When police will prepare the FIR? When they receive information about the commission of any cognizable offense. I have explained to you about now that in cognizable offense only police can file FIR. Police can write FIR. So what is FIR? FIR, your first information report, is a written document. Okay. Who prepared that FIR? Police prepared the FIR. And when the police prepare the FIR, when they receive information about the commission of any cognizable offense, when someone informed the police that yes, this type of crime has happened somewhere. Okay, now next we will see, it is the report of information. That now why it is known as first information report? The answer will be, it is the report of information that reaches the police first in point of time, and that is why it is called the first information report, because by this report the police get to hear about a crime for the first time. Okay, through an FIR, so it is called the first information report. The police can only initiate any action after an FIR has been lodged. If the FIR has been launched, now police is responsible for investigating that case. So I hope FIR is clear to you. Basically, FIR is a written document that is filed by police, okay, whenever the police get information related to any crime. It is generally a complaint. What is FIR? Is generally a complaint lodged, means filed, okay, lodged with the police by the victim of cognizable offense. By the victim, that means with whom that crime happened, or by someone on his or her behalf, okay, their relatives, their family members, okay, their neighborhood people, they can also file the FIR. Now let's see the next one. Who can file an FIR? So who can file FIR? Victim, that means the person who suffered from that crime. Witness, that means the person who has witnessed, that means the crime, the person in front of whom that crime occurred. Anybody who know about the crime, okay, anybody who is having the information about that crime, that can file an FIR. Okay, now next we are going to learn about how to file an FIR. So students, earlier it was there that a person has to go to the police station for filing an FIR, but now you can also put a call in the police station and you can file an FIR by giving all the details related to that particular crime to the police. Okay, you, so written, in written form also FIR is formed, okay, and online also. We can also file our FIR online. So these are the modern ways of filing an FIR. Now students, one more question is there in your mind, that in which cases the police do not initiate any, okay, any investigation. Suppose that you have filed an FIR in the police station, and after that also police is not starting any investigation. Suppose that many a times it happened that whenever we used to lose our SIM card or any ATM card, then we have to file an FIR, okay, that yes, on this date we have lost our card, SIM card, or we have lost our ATM card. These cases are not that much serious and police will not start any investigation. Okay, so what it will do? The police may not investigate a complainant even if you file a FIR when the case is not serious in nature. If you have lost your ATM or if you have lost your SIM card, then you can get a new one. Okay, by the FIR or with the help of FIR, it will be easier for you to block that ATM or SIM number so that no one can misuse it. Okay, so in which cases the police will not start any investigation when the case that you filed is not very serious. Okay, or when the police feel that there is not enough ground to investigate. Okay, when the police feel that yes, this case can be solved mutually. Okay, or if there is not enough evidence, and when the police think that yes, people are befooling them. Okay, the crime is not that much right. Okay, they are not giving them right information. So in those situations police can leave the investigation. However, but after that also, the police must record the reason for not conducting an investigation, and in the letter case must also inform you. But according to section 157 of the CRPC, that is Criminal Procedure Code, police has to write your FIR, and they have to mention this also, they have to keep that record also, that why they have not investigated that crime. Okay, so this is all about that. Yes, it is possible that sometimes if you file FIR, the police will not investigate. Suppose that your bicycle has been stolen by someone and you are going to the police station for filing an FIR. The police will file an FIR, but why the police will take so much effort for searching your bicycle? Okay, so for that, these are not the cases that are very serious, so that is why the police may not investigate. Okay, now let's see the next one. Procedure of filing an FIR. Now how you will file an FIR, this is very important for you to know, because sometimes it will be useful for you, or whenever the crime happened nearby you, at least you can inform people that yes, you should file an FIR. So we have seen that FIR is very important document. Okay, so let us understand that what is the correct procedure to file an FIR and how the police begin investigation after the filing of an FIR. Okay, so let's see the first one. Firstly, the procedure of filing an FIR is prescribed in section 154 of the Criminal Procedure Code 1973. Okay, so in which section the procedure of filing an FIR is given? In section 154 of the CRPC, that is Criminal Procedure Code. First, what we have to do? To report a crime, a person has to go to the nearest police station and lodge an FIR. Okay, so whenever any crime happened nearby you, okay, we have to go to the police station for filing an FIR, the nearest police station that is nearby our house. The complainant narrates the incident of the crime with every detail. Now suppose that I am going to file an FIR. So I am the complainant, okay? I am the aggrieved person with whom that crime has happened, okay? Or I am the relative of someone with whom the crime has happened. So I will go to the police station, I will narrate, I will tell each and everything to the in charge of the police there with every detail. I will tell everything, when the crime happened, okay? What is the timing, what is the day, everything I will inform with each and every detail. The information is given orally and the police must write it down. It is a responsibility of the police that while I was explaining them the case or the incident, they have to note it down. Okay, once the police officer write down the FIR, he or she has to read it out to the complainant, has to sign it. Firstly, after writing the FIR, the police has to read it out. Maybe sometime the police, you are dictating, you are narrating the incident and police is writing something else. Okay, so it is the responsibility of you that after the police write down the FIR, you have to sign on that FIR. Okay, so before signing that FIR, you have to read that the police has written everything correct or not. It is your responsibility and you have to be very sharp for this thing. You have to check that how the police has written the FIR. Okay. Nextly, we have to sign it also. The complainant has the right to ask for a copy of FIR. Now, as the complainant, you also have one copy of FIR. Okay, it is your responsibility to ask, or it is your right to ask for the copy of that FIR from the police. Okay, now let's see the next. What should you mention in the FIR? Okay, now what are the things that you have to keep in mind that it should be there in the FIR? So for that, we have to keep in mind that your name and address. You have to mention your name and address in that FIR. date, time and location of the incident you are reporting. Whatever incident you are reporting, you have to tell the date, the exact time and the correct location of that incident. Okay. Nextly, the true facts of the incident as they occurred. You have to tell the incident in a very true manner. Okay, you should not add something by your own. You should tell the incident as it is happened. True informations you have to give. Names and descriptions of the person involved in the incident. If you feel like whatever persons are there in that, you have to give their name and descriptions, that how they look, what are the name of those people, you have to give that. Okay, and witness also if any. If you are knowing that rather than you there are some more people who can help police in investigating that crime, you can also name the witnesses. Okay, that were available at the time of the crime occurred. So this is all about you have to mention in the FIR. Now let's see the next one. Things you should not do. Now while filing the FIR, the things you should not do are what you should not do. Okay, so firstly, never file a false complaint. FIR is not a thing that can be taken, okay, as fun. So you have to be very particular with cases. Never file a false complaint, because if it is also a crime, if you are filing any false complaint, it is also a crime, and for that also you can be punished. Or gave wrong information to the police. Okay, it is also a crime that you are filing any wrong complaint or any wrong information to the police. You can be prosecuted under law for giving wrong information or misleading the police. Okay, you will be only punished if you will provide wrong information to the police. Never exaggerate or distort facts. What is the meaning of exaggerate? Exaggerate means क्या होता है? That means you are बढ़ा चढ़ा के नहीं बोलना चाहिए कुछ भी. और distort facts, that means कुछ facts चुराने नहीं चाहिए. We have to tell each and everything to the police related to that crime. Okay, so this is what we should not do. Now let's see the next one. What can you do if your FIR is not registered? So students, sometimes the police is not ready to register your FIR. In movies, many a times you have seen that the policeman is not ready for filing an FIR. So what should you do in those conditions? What can you do if your FIR is not registered? You can meet the superintendent of police or the other higher rank officers like deputy inspector of police. If the police of your area is not ready to file the FIR, you can go to the superintendent of police or any higher officer of your area. Okay, and bring that notice or that complaint to their notice. You can send your complaint in writing and by post to the superintendent of police concerned. Okay, you can also send your complaint with mail or with the help of post to the superintendent of police. If the superintendent of police is satisfied with your complaint, he shall either investigate the case himself or order an investigation to be made. If the superintendent of police feels that yes, it is the fault of the police of your area that they are not filing the FIR, not registering the FIR, okay, so action will be taken against those policemen, and if it is necessary, so sometimes the SP himself initiate the case, okay, handle the case, and maybe he can order someone to handle it. Okay, so this is all about whenever your case is not filed or FIR is not registered by the police in the police station, you can go to the higher officers. Now let's talk about the next one. Now we are going to learn about police investigation, that is police investigation. Now FIR has been launched, everything has done. Now we are going to learn about police investigation, that how the police investigate the crime. Have you seen that whenever there is a crime happened at any place, how the police covered it with all the side, okay, as you can see these yellow tapes, with that it covered that particular area, and they do not allow anyone to come to that particular area. They used to seize that area. Okay, when the FIR is registered, after that the police go to the scene of the crime, wherever the crime happened or occurred, there the police will go and investigate the facts of the cases. They started collecting the evidences, they started talking about the people, those who were available at the time of crime, they started collecting the evidences. Okay, a police officer examines the scene of the crime, examines witnesses and suspects, record everyone's statement, those who are available there, even collect the fingerprints, have you seen in CIDs and all, and other technical evidences. The police sees that property also and interrogate the accused also. Okay, the person who is the grieved person, with that also they will ask, and the witnesses and on which the person has suspect, they will also be questioned. Have you seen like that, where in the case of Shanti, since the Mr. Shinde, Mrs. and Mrs. Shinde filed the complaint, so police come to that place, okay, they seize that envelope, and they take Shanti to the police station, okay, and they ask questions to Shanti also, they note down their statement also. So all these happen, okay. We will learn later that what are the rights of the person criminal. There are some rights given to the person who is suspected to be a criminal, that we will learn later, okay. So crime scene investigation, preserving the integrity of the crime scene, that means the police has to save the crime scene. Recording the crime scene, every case is whatever witnesses or people those who are available, their statement should be taken by them. Searching the scene, okay. Searching the scene, that means to check out that area, that how that crime can be happened. Collecting and packaging of evidences, they should collect the evidences properly, and okay, and they have to pack it, seal it. Crime scene safety, it is a responsibility of the police to save the crime scene so that no one can distort the evidences, okay. Now let's see the next one. What if police misuse its power? Students, police is there, and we are knowing that the police can use its power or misuse its power because they are only responsible for investigating that crime, okay. So maybe they can distort any evidence, or they can do anything, okay. They can misuse their power, suppose that the person is not the criminal, and after that, like we have seen in the case of Shanti, na, Shanti was not a criminal, okay. After that also the police taken Shanti to the police station, okay, they jailed Shanti for some days. It is not the responsibility of the police was misusing its power, okay. Not even that, the police inspector also beaten the brother of Shanti who has not committed any crime, okay. They torture him also. So these are not the rights that is given to the police, okay. So what if police misuse its power? So to ensure that, okay, in order to ensure that the police do not misuse their power by arbitrarily manmani say arresting people, police investigations always have to be conducted in accordance with law and with full respect of human rights, okay. So some rights are also given to the humans, okay, against the police, so that the police cannot misuse their power or they cannot arbitrarily put someone in jail. The Supreme Court has laid down certain guidelines that the police must follow at the time of arrest, detention, and interrogation. Now, what is the meaning of the Supreme Court has mentioned some guidelines? Okay, for the police to follow, the police has to follow those guidelines at the time of arresting someone as well as interrogating someone, okay. Arresting, detention is same, then we have when the police is arresting someone for any crime, that is only the arrest, and interrogation while asking questions also. So these guidelines are known as DK Basu guidelines, okay. So the guidelines that are initiated by the Supreme Court, that are DK Basu guidelines. What? DK Basu guidelines, okay. So let's see about the DK Basu guidelines. The police has to inform the person the reason for his or her arrest. While the police is arresting someone, the police has to tell the reason that why they are arresting you. Suppose that police come to arrest me. So it is the responsibility of the police, or it is my right that I can ask them that yes, why you are arresting me. And police has to be answerable and has to give me the reason that why they are arresting me, okay. The police official who carry out the arrest or interrogation should wear clear, accurate, and visible identification tags with their destination, okay. While the police come to arrest you, the police has to be in proper uniform with their name tags, okay, with their whatever position tags they are having, and with their destination also. That means I should know about that with which, okay, what is the name of the police, okay, that police is real or not. So the police should be in well dressed uniform during the investigating any crime. A memo of arrest should be prepared containing the date and time of arrest. The police has to prepare a memo, that means an information, okay, that yes, whom they are arresting, and there should be time and date that when they are arresting that person. Okay, the memo should be signed by at least one witness, family member of the person arrested. Suppose that the police is arresting me, so that memo should be signed by one of my family member or anyone who is present there. Okay, it should be signed for the witness that yes, when the police has arrested. Otherwise, the police will change the time and date. Okay, a boy of under 15 years of age and women cannot be called to the police station just for questioning. That happened in the case of Shanti. Shanti is a woman and she was called to the police station only on the basis of suspicion. Okay, only on the basis since their owner has suspect on them. Okay, on that basis only Shanti was called to the police station. Okay, so a boy under the age of 15 and a woman cannot be called to the police station only for questioning. So this is the DK Basu guidelines. There are some more, I think. Let's see. The person arrested has the right to inform a relative, friend or well-wisher. Okay, suppose that the police is arresting me, then it is my right that I should inform my family members that yes, the police is arresting me, or whatever friend, family member available there. Suppose that the police is arresting a person and their family members are not available in that particular city, so the police should give some time. Okay, so it is a responsibility to the of the police to inform my family members within 8 to 12 hours of my arrest. Okay, they have to inform my family members within 8 to 12 hours of my arrest. Now, the police are not allowed to torture, beat or shoot anyone during investigation. The police cannot torture you. Whatever we watch in movies, that are all rubbish things. That is not the reality. The police is not allowed to torture or to beat or to shoot anyone. If they are doing this, then they are misusing their powers. Okay, while investigating a case, the police cannot beat or torture us. They cannot inflict any form of punishment on a person even for pity cases. Police is not allowed to punish us. Okay, and they cannot punish us in any of the form, whether beating, torturing or anything, until and unless our crime has been proved in the court. Okay, confession made in police custody cannot be used as evidence against the accused. Many a times we have seen now that in the police station, the policemen used to beat a person, and they beat this much, they force the particular person to commit the crime. That we have seen in the case of Shanti, that the police was beating Shanti's brother, okay, this much that Shanti's brother could accept the crime with the afraid of beating. But after that also, since Sushil was innocent, he do not agree, or he did not commit his crime because he do not commit it. Okay, so that is only the confession made in front of the police is not used as evidence, because it is believed that in the pressure of police or with the afraid, or while afraiding with the beating of the police, the person can commit the crime under pressure. So whatever confession means to accept that yes, that person has done the crime. Okay, so in front of police, if the confession is made, so that is not taken as evidence. Now let's see, there are some rights also that are given to criminals. That means the Article 22 of the Indian Constitution confers the following rights on a person who is arrested or the detained under the ordinary law. That means there are some people, ordinary law means there are some cases like the some cases that are under the ordinary laws. Okay, so for that cases, the person has some rights. Okay, according to Article 22, let's see those rights. The right to be informed of the grounds of arrest. That means the person should be informed that why the police is arresting, on what grounds. The right to consult and to be defended by the legal practitioner, that is lawyer. Okay, if the police is arresting me, though I can hire a lawyer, I can talk to a lawyer. Okay, so that is only the person is having the right to defended by the legal practitioner, that is known as defense lawyer. The right to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours excluding the journey of time. Okay, it is the responsibility of the police that when the police is arresting me, they have to prepare the sections against me, whatever crime I have committed. Okay, they have to mention the sections that yes, according to section this I have committed this, according to section this person has committed this. ठीक है, जो भी मैंने गलतियां की हैं according to, they have to mention the sections and they have to prepare a charge sheet against me, and they have to give that charge sheet within 24 hours to the DM, that is district magistrate of that area. The right to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours excluding the time of the journey. So I hope it is clear to you that a charge sheet should be prepared after the arrest of a person, that yes, what crime that person has committed and which sections are implying on that person, and it should be presented before the district magistrate. Right to be released after 24 hours unless the magistrate authorizes further detention. And after 24 hours, if the magistrate is not saying for further questioning or for further interrogation, then the person should be released. If the district magistrate find out that yes, this person is not has not committed the crime, or it is not ready, it is not good to keep him in the jail, then it should be released. Like in the case of Shanti, since Shanti has not committed any crime, after that also she was put in jail. Okay, this after questioning also, after number of times when Shanti was telling that yes, she was innocent and she has not stolen anything, the police should release Shanti. Okay, the police did not did this. They keep Shanti in the jail just on the basis of suspicion. That was wrong. The police was misusing its power. Okay, so this is all about that I have explained you in this chapter, students. I hope it is clear to you. In the next part, I will explain you about the trial, fair trial, public prosecutor, and about defense lawyer also. Okay, so and we will also learn about the jails. The last part will be shorter one, and I hope all of you are able to understand this part well. And whatever problems you are having, you can ask me. So thank you, students.